January or February 1959, and got very excited about living in Rhodes University. In those days we had RAG, and there was all sorts of fun in RAG. That was when we made up floats and we went on a procession around the town. We collected money for charity. Okay, well, I came to Rhodes by accident actually, because I wanted to do agriculture and I couldn't get into the university at Pietermaritzburg, so I came from Durban, and so I thought, well, there's another place to go to, that's Rhodes, and a friend of mine was coming to Rhodes, and so my dad put me on a ship and I came down to Port Elizabeth, and some of his friends brought me up to Grahamstown. And immediately I was delighted with Rhodes University and the whole city, whole place where you could get around, you could walk around. Initially I didn't get into the residence, but then later on I got into Jan Smuts. And we had a great rag procession that year. It was one of the days when we used to have these events of raising money for charity, and we'd make up floats. Ours was, I don't know what it was. They usually had a theme for the floats, and each of the residences made up a float, and we paraded around the town and collected money. And then the thing in the botany department, in our second year, we went on an excursion to Hogsback, and we did this every year after that. And we'd spend a week up at the Hogsback sampling the vegetation, and that's when I really got interested in ecology. And so I had very good lecturers who were my mentors, Professor Stan Seagrieve and Dr. Amy Jacques-Guillemot. And Dr. Amy was particularly, she always looked out for the students who were keen and interested, and she was doing work in Lesotho. And so twice I went up to Lesotho with her in the January period for about 6 weeks, and we'd go and sample in the mountains there. We were actually doing a survey because they wanted to establish the new dams up there, and the Katsi Dam and so on. And so it was a period where they wanted to know what sort of vegetation was there and what was going to be lost. Okay, well, after I'd got my degree in Rhodes, I'd met an American who had been in South Africa, and he said, why don't you come over there and do a PhD? So I jumped at that. Got on a ship and I went off to America, but I didn't like the project that I was working on there in Oklahoma. So I went up to Canada, to Ontario, and that's where I finally got my PhD. I had relatives up there and lots of friends as well who were in Ontario. So it was the place I got established outside of South Africa, and I spent lots of time there, and I've been back there periodically. So it was a very good founding for when finally a post was opened at Rhodes in 1975, that I moved down to Grahamstown and got established in the botany department here. And I started off as a lecturer, and at those days the department wasn't very strong. We had people coming and going, and finally we started getting more permanent staff, and I managed to build up the ecology section of the botany department, and I consequently established a very good research school in coastal ecology with a number of postgraduate students who did their masters and PhDs with me in plant ecology. So it was a fantastic place to do this work because there's such a lot of variation. Grahamstown's ideally situated. We've got these different types of flora coming down from the northern parts of Africa, the coastal forests which develop in the mountains and then move down to the coasts, so that we've got the most magnificent forests down at Tsitsikamma, and also at Alexandria there's beautiful forests. And then you get the grassland types coming down like that as well. Coming from the Western Cape is the Cape fynbos vegetation. So they all sort of meet, and there's thicket vegetation in Grahamstown area as well. So they all sort of meet, and there's a great lot of diversity of different species of plants in this whole so-called Albany hotspot. And so it was an ideal place to study botany, and it's an ideal place to teach botany, because you've got all of these different things you can show to the students. Yeah, so that's that was basically my career, and I just kept going and stayed on here. I've just never left, because Grahamstown's a beautiful place to live. There's no reason to move, and many of my friends who did go to Cape Town and other places, they were disappointed in what they found, because you've got a very nice community to live with, and that's basically why I've stayed in Grahamstown. And of course, I developed this magnificent house here. It's an 1820 settler farm, which was established in about 1823, that the settler who came out, fought at the Battle of Waterloo, came out here and decided to become independent, and he called the place Waterloo Farm because of the fact that he had spent so much time at Waterloo. And then it's just been passed on from generation to generation, not within his family. It's changed hands all the time. And consequently, when I took it over in 1981, it was a bit of a wreck. And it was one of my passions to do the restoration of the house. So we actually pulled off all the boards and cleaned down all the wood and redid the whole house. And the latest addition is the conservatory, which I've established out there, which is a wonderful place to sit, especially in the winter and on colder days. But it's too hot to sit out there today. So you can see what a special environment this is, especially for a botany department, to have all your plants just growing right here, and the birds and everything else come to you. These ponds have been created and so on. And it's a place for the birds to bath there. And this is where we have tea in the morning and the afternoons. The tea room's in there, and we bring the tea or coffee out here. The other thing that Professor Twyman established was the Pineapple Growers Institute. He got funds from the pineapple growers in the area, and then they did research work on pineapples. And this was based in this lab here that was created for the pineapple growers. And they used to send in soil samples and leaf samples and so on. And they were analysed, and quite a few students got their degrees working on pineapples in those days. My office used to be over there, and then when the zoology building was being built down there, they said they were going to move us all into that building. And I said, no, I'm staying in this office, you're not moving me out of there. And that was what the biggest contribution. I think they eventually decided, no, well, they'd move microbiology out and go in with zoology, and we could stay in this building, because I think this is the most fantastic place to study botany. And you know, there's just been little contributions I've made in terms of when I was senior lecturer, I expect. I said to Professor Seagrove, who was the head of the department at that time, each of the staff members should have their own office and then their research lab next door. So we tried to do that. And that's what I established my office over there, and I had a research lab there. And the same thing happened with the staff at the back. They all had a lab which was associated with their office. So this is where they could put their postgraduate students. And I think that was a great contribution too, because it meant that we could become part of the whole. And the other thing that Professor Seagrove said, was what I introduced as well, was projects in their third year. I said the students have got to do a project, original research project, and they work on some aspect of botany. And in the first year, in those days, we used to have an arts and science week. And so 1 week of the year, the whole of the university was open to the public and to various departments to come and investigate. So we had wonderful times and tremendous parties in those reses in those days. And I think it depended which res you were in. I think some of them were a lot better than they are, than others. And I'm sure the same as today, that the res life is pretty much a feature of living at Rhodes. Yeah, that was very enjoyable because of, and all the activities and things that the residents got up to as well and then that's what's made Rhodes is such an exceptional university. I think it's been a residential university, having so many students in residence.